Hey everyone, it's Mr. Drake. This video will introduce part 1B of the APUS history exam, the short answer portion. We'll be talking about the basics and the do's and don'ts behind the short answer question, so that by the end of this video you'll be just as comfortable writing them as that young lady in the stock photograph there is. So with that, let's get started. As it is on other AP history exams, the short answer question comes after multiple choice but before the longer essays, the DBQ and the LEQ. It lasts 40 minutes. It counts 20% of your exam score, and there are 3 short answer questions, so each one counts 6% and change of your exam score. The answers must fit on one page. It's not like the DBQ or the LEQ where you can just go on for a while. It has to fit on one page, and you have there on the right hand side of the slide an example of what that page looks like, and your entire answer must fit inside that box. AP short answer questions are scored remotely via computer. They're not scored in person with the page right in front of the reader. So that means if it's not inside the box, the reader won't see it. It might as well not exist. So you got to make sure you get it in that box. They're scored on a scale of 0 to 3. So each of the 3 short answer questions is out of a possible 3 points. Most short answer questions are divided up into parts A, B, and C, and there are 3 discrete sections of the question you have to address. So let's go over what each question will look like. Question 1 and 2 are required, and then you get a choice between questions 3 and 4. So we'll start with question 1. It's again required. You have to answer question 1. It will come from periods 3 through 8 from the APUS history curriculum. In short, that means it will come from between the years 1754 and 1980. Pretty big range to cover. Question 1 will have you analyze a secondary source, so a piece of writing from a historian, most likely. Question 2 is also required, will also come from the same 1754 to 1980 window. And question 2 will ask you to analyze a primary source, either something that somebody from that time period wrote, or it could be a chart, it could be a map, it could be a political cartoon, something like that. The thinking skill they'll have you using there is either comparison or causation, so comparing one thing to another thing or analyzing the causes of a particular historical event. Then they give you 2 more short answer questions, and you pick one of them, question 3 or question 4. Question 3 will come from periods 1 through 5, so essentially through the end of the Civil War, and question 4 will come from periods 6 through 9, which is the time period roughly after the Civil War and Reconstruction. And they will also analyze comparison and causation, but it will not be the one they asked you about in question 2. So for example, if question 2 asked you about comparison, asked you to compare something, question 3 and question 4 would both be causation questions, or vice versa. So that is what the short answer questions actually look like and how it'll be set up. And now we will talk a bit about the do's and don'ts. So first of all, one of the big misconceptions about the short answer question is that you can be super brief and essentially just bullet point your answers with little snippets of phrases. Don't do that. You should use complete sentences. Okay, you do not need a thesis statement. You don't need to set up a big 5-paragraph essay. You don't have time for that. You don't have room for that on the one page, but still show the reader that you know how to write. So use complete sentences. You should itemize your responses. Like I said earlier, they're generally laid out part A, part B, part C. So make sure you denote clearly which part of the question that you're answering. Part A, yada, yada, yada. Part B, part C, repeat that. You should answer all parts of the question, or at least try. Obviously, there's nothing to lose. You don't get negative points if you bomb. So at the very least, you should make the old college try at each part. Directly reference the source material. If they give you a primary source, like a cartoon or something like that, the secondary source you're asked to analyze in question 1, make sure you reference that throughout your answer. Always tie what you're saying back to the source material. That shows the reader that you know how to analyze that source and that you know what you're talking about. You should also be explicit about what you're explaining. Don't take for granted that the reader understands or knows already what it is you're talking about or what it is you're explaining. Okay, so whenever you say something, lay out the evidence, always tie that together to make sure they totally understand what it is that you're saying. Do not bullet point your responses. What I mean by that is do not just put, like I said, 1 or 2 word phrases to answer a question. Okay, it should be somewhat expository, should be full, complete sentences. Do not write your responses on the wrong page. I know that seems like a stupid piece of advice, but again, remember that if you are writing question 1 and you write it on the question 2 page, the reader's not going to have the question 2 page on their computer screen. They're only going to have the question 1 page. So the College Board goes out of their way to make sure that you're writing on the correct page. The pages are watermarked with a big 1 and a big 2 and a big 3. So, they go out of their way to try to make sure that you stay on the straight and narrow path, but still don't get in a hurry and panicky and mess that up. So make sure you're on the right page. And this is going to seem a little defeatist, although I don't mean it to, but don't assume or expect you're going to get every single point, especially on questions 1 and 2 when you have no choice about what it is you're writing about. As I'll say throughout the course, if you're one of my students, you're going to see stuff on the exam that you're not as familiar with as other stuff, or maybe you'll even see some words and phrases you've never seen before. If that happens, don't panic. Use the source material there at your disposal. Do your best to cobble together an answer. It's good to get 2 out of 3 points on each short answer question. There's no shame in that. Again, not saying you shouldn't strive to get every point, but you also shouldn't have a full-blown panic attack just because you missed part C of question 1 and you couldn't think of anything to put. But again, between what you'll learn in the class and the material they give you on the exam, you should be able to at least take an educated stab at every part of the question, and hopefully even better than that. That will do it for this video. If you're one of my students, make sure you reference this video throughout the school year. We'll be doing a lot of stuff with short answer questions. Feel free to leave questions in the comments. I'll get to them as I'm able. Cheers!